Uh, I want to welcome each of you here today to the Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center. This is actually our fifth annual prostate cancer symposium sponsored by the Institute for Prostate Cancer Research. It's great to see some familiar faces, old faces as well as new ones attending the symposium today. So I say this every year, but we really do have a stellar lineup of speakers to tell you about the latest research in prostate cancer, as well as provide some more practical information that hopefully will be useful for you day to day. And the whole point of this symposium is to be very interactive. As you'll see from the schedule, we have time set aside for questions and answers, and I'll get into that in a little bit more detail in a moment. So we conceived this event 5 years ago really as a way to kind of give back, if you will, to the community, to provide information and education for those of you having to deal with a diagnosis or a loved one with a diagnosis of prostate cancer. And we've carried this on each year. So the Institute for Prostate Cancer Research is a collaborative effort between two world-class research organizations, the University of Washington and the Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center. So we agreed many years ago to jointly focus on our research and treatment efforts to cure this cancer. And then the clinical arm is called the Cancer Care Alliance, which is just across this parking lot here, and probably many of you are familiar with that. We do have a website for those of you that want a little bit more detail in terms of what the IPCR is all about, what its research mission is, and drill down into some of the projects. And we also give tours of the laboratories here at Fred Hutch and also at the university. So for any of you ever interested, we're happy to bring you in, show you the researchers, get to meet the young people who actually make the engine work. So many years ago, growing up as a small boy in Kansas, I used to read my grandmother's Reader's Digest. There are a lot of funny cartoons and things in it. And I remember back then there were these vignettes of I am Joe's X. I am Joe's heart, I am Joe's brain, I am Joe's lungs, etc. And I didn't pay attention to this one when I was a 10-year-old boy, I am Joe's prostate. I didn't think it was really that interesting at the time. I was more captivated by Joe's brain and Joe's lungs. But I think this little discussion really hits home now when you read it. So Joe knows, like most men, that I can be a real troublemaker, is how it starts out. But like most men, you prefer to ignore me, but you should know better. We're going to hear more about screening later today, which is relevant certainly for that statement. I'm one of the hot spots in Joe's body, a design nightmare for which nature should be hanging her head. Red-brown, about the size of an English walnut, I produce a variety of grief. I can disturb Joe's sleep by requiring several trips to the bathroom each night, or kill him with uremic poisoning due to urinary blockage. And if Joe lives long enough, I'll become a cancer site far surpassing the lungs in importance. And that's really why all of you are here today. So the intent and objective over the next morning and early afternoon session is really to provide information back to you concerning the current state of prevention, screening, and treatment for prostate cancer. We hope to highlight exciting new developments, be a bit forward-thinking of things you may anticipate over the next several years. And in this case, we have a special part of the symposium devoted to immunotherapy, where you'll hear really exciting work in leukemias and lymphomas, and we hope that's going to move into the prostate cancer field soon. We also want to provide this forum for addressing questions that you may have, and so NOLA is passing out index cards or cue cards for you to write questions on. We'll have the Q&A session and we'll pass the microphone around, but if you're shy or you want to get that question in early, you can give the cue card back to NOLA, and I'll be moderator to provide that to the people answering the questions. And then finally, we want to emphasize that this really is a partnership. It's a partnership between the researchers, the clinicians, and all of you, both for getting the information out, participating on clinical trials, and advocacy for research funding. That's really the only way we're going to make continued progress here. Here's the program. You've got it, hopefully. That was handed out. These talks try to change a bit every year for those of you who have been in past research symposiums. So they have slightly different orientations. You can see we're going to talk about screening. We have one of the world experts here in understanding the nuances of PSA screening, pros and cons, all the way through the rest that you'll see here. One omission, which has been a very popular one in years past, is talking about diet and nutrition. So Marion Newhouser couldn't be here today, but I can tell you what she would say. She would say a heart-healthy diet is a prostate-healthy diet. She would say eat your cruciferous vegetables and legumes, so beans, lentils, that sort of thing. So she can provide more details on that. But we didn't serve that for breakfast this year. Didn't want to keep you all away, but next year that might be on the menu. Then we have this period for question and answer, so we're not going to have questions in between each talk, but hold them, and then we'll have a 15-minute break before, or 15-minute interval before the coffee break to answer those questions. Then we have the session on immunotherapy, time for Q&A then we'll provide lunch for you, and then the afternoon we move more into advanced prostate cancer, metastatic prostate cancer, and we have a series of talks around that area, and then another time for question and answer, and then we'll adjourn. I want to dedicate this symposium, we've started to do this the last few years, to two individuals, Pete Derrick, who is a prominent Seattle native, a businessman in the community, a supporter of the IPCR, University of Washington, and Fred Hutch, and then Norm Breslow, who was an epidemiologist here at Fred Hutchinson and in biostatistics at the University of Washington. Truly a world leader in cancer epidemiology that really set the stage for how we understand disease incidence, and it's very sad to have lost both of these men this year. And then I also want to dedicate this to all of the support groups, us to the groups that in your communities and around the state and around the country that communicate and provide a venue for men to come and talk about their issues related to prostate cancer. So I also want to thank Nola Klemfus, who's really the organizer here of this symposium. She's in the back of the room there. And if you have any questions throughout the day or even afterward, you can email her or talk with her. And also the development staff here at Fred Hutch and the University of Washington. I'll give you their emails at the very end if you want to contact them. The support groups again, and then we have two corporate sponsors, Bayer Healthcare, that develops, has a radium-223 drug used for treating advanced bone metastases, and Genomic Health, which is a molecular diagnostics company, so they've provided support for us, and then the generous donors to the Institute for Prostate Cancer Research. A few final details, and then we're spot on time. So at lunch, we'll have some tables there from support groups, and also to discuss a very important initiative that we've called Prostate, or Empower Northwest, which is a data repository to understand how men choose therapies and understand what side effects occur. And Nola's going to talk about that in the afternoon in more detail, but there'll be a table at lunch to talk about that. All of these talks will eventually end up on YouTube, so if you don't catch something as people are speaking today, it'll be up there in the future for you to revisit it as often as you like. We'll have the questions, as I mentioned. The index cards should have been passed out, but if you need more, raise your hand and Nola can give them to you. And then feedback is critical. As I'll reiterate at the end of the day, we want to continue to make this symposium better. So if there's any topics you really want to hear about, and we heard last year a lot of questions about immunotherapy, which is why we had that component of the program this year. But if there are other key areas that you want to hear about in the future, if you want us to do this more often, right now we do it once a year, but any feedback is greatly appreciated.